Westminster College sits on over 300 acres. The current question before the college's Board of Trustees is, do you sell it to drillers or leave it alone?
We held a meeting here on campus today for the campus community to discuss the issue of whether to or not lease our property for fracking. And this was actually a meeting that was conducted at the request of the Property Committee of the Board of Trustees as a fact-finding session to amass as much information as it can to make a good informed decision going forward as to whether or not to lease property for shale gas exploration in the future. This is an important issue for us, not only for the possible economic benefits that could come, but also of the implications from an environmental standpoint as well. And this board and the administration of the college do not have a position on this yet. So we are not really clear as to what direction we want to take, but we want to gather as much information as possible. So we're trying to make this decision-making process as transparent as possible. And hopefully that through this process we'll be able to make a good decision going forward. We did not record this visually inside because sometimes when you put TV cameras in front of individuals, they tend to behave for those cameras. And we wanted this to be a relaxed, informal, but productive discussion for individuals to share their concerns, their thoughts on this entire issue. And I thought it went very, very well. It's very balanced. It was very helpful, I know, to the board members as well. And I thought it was a very successful meeting overall. So now the board will, the property committee of the board will take this information under advisement. We'll look at other aspects of this decision and discuss this with the board at an upcoming meeting. And that's where we are.
Because I experienced in my own life what mineral changes can happen in a community. So my family and my background back in the 1920s sold their mineral rights, thinking nothing would ever happen because the coal was so deep. That happened all over Southern Illinois. And I mentioned there the song that Loretta Lynn sang about, please take me back to, and I can't even remember the name of the county because I think Jackson County. And it ends up with, I can't go back because Mr. Peabody's coal company done carried it away. Well, it was Peabody Coal where I was living. And for a while there was a boom. There was a lot of industry. But it wrecked the whole environment. The farmers couldn't farm. There's no jobs left. The water was polluted. And I know that that was 100 years ago and maybe not quite so long ago. But I also know that there's significant pollution and damages with fracking. But I also know that there's significant pollution and damages with fracking. And the main answer that they give is, well, we don't know if it really is this because they never tell us what it is that they're putting in the water that goes down. But our own students have done research and shown the levels that come out of the wastewater, even without a leak, and the probabilities of leaks. So I'm very passionate about it because I've seen what it can do to a community when you move ahead and you don't know what it's going to do to the environment. And I'm also passionate because I know that we're going to have a water shortage. It's hard to imagine it in beautiful western Pennsylvania where it rains every other day and it's green. But in the world there is a water shortage, and our aquifers in the United States are at risk. And they talked about some of the kinds of things that could affect the groundwater. All the other things are important too, but those are things I've been thinking about for a long time.
I wanted to know as much as I could on my own. I wanted to educate myself. And after I educated myself, I came to the personal conclusion that this is not something I feel comfortable with as far as potential health implications for my children.
Oh, everybody would like the money. I don't think anybody had any problem with getting money. I would have liked the money that would have come to my own personal bank account. So they're speaking from concerns about the cost. Now, there were a few people who said that there are some costs of signing that are hard to calculate. And so maybe we're not going to get as much benefit from the money. So suppose students don't want to come here because there's a mine that's polluting the community. We have fewer students. That's a major economic cost. And so some people were saying that it's hard to know exactly what the economic benefit's going to be. That wasn't my argument, but I understand numbers, and they're correct. And so it's hard to talk about the numbers as being not that significant when they're that big. I mean, you say million and I think big. You say 1,000, I think big. But when he showed us how much it cost to heat the college, and it really is that the amount of money we would make over 10 or 20 years would pay the heating bill. Oh. So it's hard for people who live everyday lives to think about institutional budgets.
Yeah, it's a very good point. It is important to distinguish between the immediate health implications to you or to the person who's living in the area. It is the case that if everyone else is fracking, you might say to yourself, well, what's the difference? I'm going to get the consequences anyway. But you do at a certain point. If you don't agree with what's happening at a certain point, you do need to ask yourself whether you want to encourage and participate in that. This brings also, if you're participating in something that you don't agree with, it doesn't just impact you physically, it impacts you emotionally and also your character. So if you feel like you're giving in, or if you're participating in something that goes against your values or your characters or your character traits, then you're probably doing some additional damage to yourself by cooperating or contributing to it.
And the issue is it such a change in our environment that it could affect the way our students can learn and live in our community and increase health factors and all that kind of problem?
For me, the issue is air. I mean, we can't do anything without water, but the air you cannot get away from. You can't get an alternate air source. And just like any other industrial plant, industrial working site, there's going to be chemicals used, there's going to be emissions. And we already live in an area of the country that has compromised air quality because of the coal and the steel industries. And we've just begun to clean it up. The Breathe Project out of Pittsburgh has a lot of information on this issue. So for me, it's the air. You can't chuck in an air buffalo like you can get a water buffalo to, switch out your water.
My wife and I moved to New Wilmington and to Westminster College on purpose because we enjoyed the environment. We enjoyed the atmosphere, and also the fact that it had good natural surroundings, etc. And we actually chose to come here because we were looking at this as a next step for us and possibly even an area to retire to, and we wanted to be part of that. The most noticeable ones will be just the physical presence of the drills, the wells, but also the infrastructure that's put into place for the roads and access to the roads, the pipes, and the land that is needed in order to be able to continue access after. One thing that was brought up in this meeting too, because of the two different kinds of shale that's here, it seems likely that these sites won't just be fracked once. But they would be fracked multiple times. And also they showed us the relationship of, for instance, the amount of income that would be derived from the wells for the first years and how it peters off significantly for 4, 5, 6 years after that. And they mentioned the possibility that in order to reproduce the initial burst or spike in that income, that they would even consider to come back and refrac again. So I think some people have the idea that this happens for a couple of months and then goes away. But those people who have experienced this and write about it and talk about this as going on for years. And people can verify this themselves if you drive down through Washington, PA, etc. You see the very, very obvious, palpable disruption of the land.
Oh, they've been brilliant. I mean, the fact that they didn't just take the money and run, the fact that they didn't say, well, everybody else is doing it, so it would be stupid for us. The fact that they're getting the information in and they're hearing from the community, they're doing a really good job. And I don't know what decision they're going to make. It is a hard decision, and there are a lot of different viewpoints. But I think they're doing a good job.
I was impressed with the fact that it was an open meeting. I was encouraged by that. For me personally, it was actually very nice to be able to come and hear that they were taking this as a complex issue with multiple viewpoints. I was encouraged that they seem not to have made a decision, and I was encouraged as well that that so many different people of different kind of walks of life and different connections with the school were able to voice their opinion. And then we'll see what happens. One kind of take-home point for this, though, that shouldn't be missed is that even though it was open to the public, there wasn't actually one single positive comment from anybody in the public, either from students or staff or people from the area. So it will be kind of hard to see how the take-home point for the board would be anything but cautionary or negative from us.
Glad that we had this session today to know more of what they're doing, to know that there are plenty of colleges that have just signed without consulting their community, I think is reprehensible. So to know that the Westminster Board of Trustees and the president and the staff think it is so important that they want to hear our input, I think is heartening. You know, school boards around here have signed without taking into consideration questions from the community. So the fact that they're taking the time to listen means a lot. It means a lot to be heard.